I'm excited to introduce and get things going here with Simon. We're going to start with Simon. Structure it like it's just Simon and I having a chat. So for those who haven't met me yet, I'm Christina Hajosi, and I am NEBA's current president. I do the web development and zine swapping and a whole lot of different odds and ends. And today, we're going to be having a special guest. He's not a member yet, but hopefully one day he will be. So Simon's got, so basically I thought we could just start with a good introduction on taking a look, and I don't know how much Simon's going to be able to speak. He's going to start and see how long he lasts, because I know his throat is not good. I really got turned on to pop-up books a while back, and I started doing things like joining clubs like the Movable Book Society and things of that nature. And I joined a Zoom meeting that was going to be a presentation that Simon was going to give by Paper Specs, and fell in love not only with just the whole, like, from forest to forest, but just in all of his work and his attitude and how his process, and some of the stuff he said just really resonated strongly with me. This is his website, and it gives you a good feel. You can hop on here. We're going to be taking a look at this particular pop-up because I couldn't help myself. I had to go get it. It's awfully really special. Nice flexagon. Started. I'm going to start us a little presentation here, and I don't know, Simon, you're gonna join me here and give me a little bit of a backstory on how you get started.
Happy to jump in.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so here we're looking at the flexagon. You want to tell us a little bit about how this project evolved? And I know it was a Kickstarter, right?
Yeah. So just as we just mentioned, I kind of lost my voice this weekend, so apologies if I'm a little hoarse and might just lose my voice again, but we'll give it a try. So this is a project I worked on a few years ago that was ended up being a Kickstarter called The Wild, and it goes through, and it's based on a mechanism called a hexaflexagon. And so as the piece rotates and kind of moves inward, and the viewer plays with it, the sides open up and it reveals a fish. The fish jumps through a river, and then as the toy keeps being played with, it eventually all becomes one giant grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear eats the fish.
So trying to show a couple of different views so that people can see that all of the pieces are printed on both sides. Here comes the mouth. You could do it in reverse. You can just keep playing. It's just amazing how it just blows your mind. The engineering blows your mind.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So I've got a copy of it here as well. I'm not sure if you can all see my screen as well or not. And I apologize for the mood lighting. I was going to be at my studio, but I had to take a sick day today, so we're at my house. But yeah, as we see in these photos, it's this ever rotating structure that kind of shows the fish. And then as you keep playing with it, eventually you see this giant bear kind of engulf all sides of it. And then it rotates back into that initial river scene. And so what I was trying to do with that, I was trying to play with this idea. I didn't come up with the concept of a hexaflexagon or a flexagon. Those are these mechanisms that can move and rotate kind of endlessly forever. But I just really decided that I wanted to try to put a narrative to it and play around with the idea of something that could go on forever. And so my kind of goal was to do a predator and prey, like a grizzly bear and a salmon, always in play, always trying to, eat and be eaten. And so I worked with this. I spoke to several publishers and tried to get this published, and it got me in a lot of doors, but no one could really figure out what to do with it. They're like, it's not quite a toy, not quite a book. So I ended up going on Kickstarter and doing a successful Kickstarter campaign for it. I made 1,000 copies, and I'm down for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was the minimum run that I could
So do you mind me asking just a few more questions about the run itself? Okay, so you make a template, you make the first one, then you deconstruct it, they lay it out into a way that they can print and die cut. Is that what they do?
Yeah, so my process is that I make a very original rough version. It's paper and tape and scissors and prayer, and and just trying to figure out what will fit inside this shape and work for this specific mechanism. And then from that, what I end up doing is I take it apart and see all the pieces flat, and I put art onto those. And in this case, I made kind of digital art in Adobe Illustrator. I just felt like I like this kind of clean geometric shape to kind of go with the kind of oddness of the mechanism.
Right.
So then when I approached some of these printers that I've worked with on larger projects, on like the forest to forest project, etc.
Yeah.
So I approached them and said, hey, how small of a run can you do? Because I have a very weird project. And so they said about 1,000. And so I was able to work with them to produce that.
So when you get it from them, is it this way, or are you getting it like die cut and then you go and assemble it?
I had both options, and I decided to get it fully assembled because
they do with both options. Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, great.
And I had been kind of making these for friends and making these over and over again and going to like, you know, art shows and having a table. And I just, after a while, I was like, I can't keep making these by hand. I need to move on to other things. So
it seems like producing it would actually have to evolve as you get better to make it something that would be worth producing, because there does become a point at which it leaves the unique world of artist books, or even the small edition world of artist books.
Absolutely.
And the price point changes, the idea of having a colophon or not, and the packaging, and the idea of the, you know, I really was struck myself because I come from a family that has a lot of big game hunting in the South, which I really find distasteful. And so I do a lot of anti-trophyism, you know, like the idea of the trophy and I are not friends, and Women as a Trophy Wife, particularly, is a series I'm working on. But the idea that you had it mounted originally in that one photo that I saw, you had it mounted on like a wooden plaque, which I just thought was so wonderful to take it, you know, it really does take it with the bear head coming out, you know, as a way to house. I loved it. I thought it was so clever.
Speaking of things that are hard to see in this light,
we can see it. Yeah, we can see it.
A limited edition of kind of plaques, because I'm with you. I'm not a game hunter. I don't like the killing.
Yeah, I just thought it was lovely.
And so I just kind of played around with this idea of this bear that could kind of exist in this other world and exist kind of safely and sort of not killing anything. Yeah.
I just thought it was a really wonderful aesthetic and wonderful execution, and just the idea of the curiosity that it and the engagement of it, which is one of the main reasons why I find artist books so fascinating, is because a lot of art forms you can't touch. So it just really took me to a new place. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you putting it in terms of book arts. I thought of it as a piece of book art at the time. The choice to mass produce it, I know, does kind of change its value structure, but I liked the idea.
I mean, pop-up books in general, like anytime. I mean, when you get a mass production on something, I mean, you know, I don't really think it negates it, in my opinion. It always blows my mind that they can do things. And I have to just give you a shout out. I do have your contact information. Once we get the slideshow going again, you were holding things, so I wanted to share that. But one of my favorites is, his name is Yasuki Ono, I believe. And it's called Mount Fuji. And this was like $30. And you look at, like, the original was probably very, very complicated, but it's a pop-up that's mass produced and you can get it shipped off of Amazon. I mean, look at this thing, the intricacy of the way this works. It just it's mind-blowing now that these companies are able to work with us on these projects. And Red Paper Plane and what is it called? Sculptural Graphics and some of these other places are an eye-opener.
They're really pushing the form and allowing a lot of us to create things that are complicated and producible, which is amazing.
Yeah, and so I don't have a problem with the idea that other people are getting involved in your process. I mean, it's definitely you at the get-go, so that's cool. So let's get on with the idea of from forest to forest. And I'm gonna go back to our share again.
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, please do. While I'm getting transitioning here, please, Marie, join
Okay.
us in the
Hi,
conversation.
Simon, great work. Very, very interesting and whimsical and really complex. So congratulations on wonderful work. Do you by any chance keep photographs of your working process?
I do. I keep I keep the working prototypes. Whether or not I've done a good job photographing them is another thing. But I always keep my prototypes. So I have my rough versions of all my projects in some form of functional or another. Yeah.
That's great. It would be interesting to see it, you know, from the perspective of those of us that are not pop book engineers, you know.
Yeah. I can definitely show you guys some of those. I don't have any on me, but I can email them to the group just to show kind of some of my process.
Great.
It's very rough. It's a lot of like tape and scissors, and it's like you kind of to go from kind of that to this is quite it's a stretch at a certain point.
I can only imagine. Thank you.
Welcome.
So since your voice is not going to bear with us too good, and because from forest to forest is such an unusual concept, I want to play this little short video. It's only 3 minutes, and normally I don't think this is such a great idea, but to do somebody else's video during your meeting anyway, but she explains it condensedly in a really interesting way, and then we can get into the photos and talk about it a little more. So let's just take a look.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever subscribed to Paper Specs, but if you Google Paper Specs, you'll find a whole lot of very interesting things. And she fell in love with Simon too, so she needed to totally hook him up with a good spotlight. So
This is a stunning pop-up book, but make sure not to miss the hidden Easter eggs that share facts and processes in very fun and interactive ways. Hi everybody, I'm Sabine Lenz, the founder of Paper Specs, with your weekly dose of paper inspiration. Considering how integral paper is to our daily lives, it's amazing how little many of us know about where it comes from and how it's being made. As a company that relies heavily on renewable natural resources, sustainability is not merely a trend, but at the core of SAPI's being. So tapping into the talents of one of the most exciting paper engineers around, they created From Forest to Forest, an astonishingly ambitious pop-up book that is equal parts beautiful and educational. Designed by Minneapolis-based Studio 10,000 Design and brought to life by paper engineer Simon Arizpe, the book is filled to bursting with flora and fauna, buildings and machinery that all sprang from its pages in surprising ways. Made entirely from SAPI Spectro, this SFI certified volume is lushly illustrated with art by Alex Pearson, depicting the lifespan of a sheet of this paperboard from its origins in the forest on through the papermaking process, right up to the various uses to which it's put in the marketplace. From the vivid shades of the leaves to the blue of the skies and various hues of the packaging examples shown, this volume is awash in vibrant colors. But what really grabs the attention and won't let go are the pop-up elements. With the turn of a page, entire forests rise. Animals give way to a paper-making machine, printing press, and ultimately return and repeat the process again in a forest setting. From the importance of forests as habitat for animals to active forest management practices, facts and processes are explained in colorful and very interactive ways. Movable flaps share a myriad of related facts and grant us a sneak peek inside everything from rabbit dens to the inner workings of a massive paper-making machine. Not satisfied with merely creating breathtaking pop-ups, the designers rounded out the look and feel of this volume with everything from fluorescent and chrome silver inks to gloss and all varnishes, soft touch and textured matte coatings, as well as sculptured and single-level embossings, and even a scratch-off coating for a lottery ticket, demonstrating one of the uses of the paperboard. From Forest to Forest is an inspiring example of print being used to add weight, interactivity, and texture to the telling of a story that we all should know by heart in a way that celebrates the work and thought that goes into the making of the paper we all rely on. While From Forest to Forest uses a very unique lay flat binding technique to accommodate the pop-ups and pullouts, there are so many binding options available to you today. Whatever you're designing, be sure to download our free binding cheat sheet right now to know the pros.
Actually, check that out.
And
That's actually cool.
Did you enjoy this video?
Okay, so the coolest thing about all this for me is I went and I got to see this great like Zoom session. It was just lovely. And then like at the end of the session, they had the craziest thing. They said that they had 100 free copies. It was just like insane. 100 free copies of this sample book. This is basically a really serious high-end showpiece of a sample book, right? So most people that would look at this sitting on your coffee table wouldn't really understand that till they get to the very end. So when we really work our way through this book and you get to see some of the actual up close shots of how everything is, you're gonna be like, holy cow, this is one seriously cool thing that you can't ever get. This isn't for sale, I don't believe. So I was lucky that I was able to score. I sent my email address and suddenly out of nowhere, this box appeared. And magically, it didn't have a sticker anywhere that mattered. So the beautiful front of my package when it arrived was pristine.
Yeah.
Okay. I took a peek inside and look at this amazing textured like wrapping paper that was in there. I was very tempted to take some for collage use, but no. Okay. You open it up and you start to get in there. It's really well done. I mean, every little aspect of this is a showpiece. Yeah, it really is. The textures really do take me personally to paste paper. I'm feeling it. Really do feel that crunchy kind of flavor in these in the textures of the designs. Yeah, it gets right into the fact that this is a sappy product. That they're really trying to showcase what they do, how they do it, how they care about everything, and that's important. I think that's a good thing. And they're also Boston based. Isn't that odd for us that they're local? I didn't know. Yeah, I really love the fact that you can look at this book sitting upright, laying flat in all these different ways and have such a different interaction with it each time. You're seeing from the different angles, you're seeing how this lay flat bind works here a little bit. This beautiful color, shimmers here and there, little odds and ends about these special finishing techniques that this company can do. And so you're just enjoying it most of the time. You're not really thinking like, oh, this is about really seriously about samples. So when you get to the end, it references every single little thing that's special. You've got all these little areas that pop up that have additional content. You can see a little bit, starting to see some of the engineering here on the side angles. You can see this little area on the corner to the right of the beaver that catches the front, and it's like a little door to open and close. You can see how complicated all these hingings are. Getting familiar enough with these things to almost want to take them apart to be able to figure out the reverse engineering on them. Obviously, you don't want to destroy something in doing that, but that is going to be a strategy, I think, for helping you to learn. Because I think a lot of us are experimenting with.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who will take used pop-up books and learn from them. So it's a tried and true method.
Yeah. I just love all the little features, and you don't always find them on the first couple of times, or you forget, and then you come back and you're like, oh yeah, there's that other thing. Yeah, it's just really, this is really getting in now to the heart of like how you do some of these layers. I still just find it fascinating that a company is willing to make this.
I know this was definitely a project that was a great project to have, especially right at the beginning of the pandemic was when I started engineering, and it was like, oh yeah, you know, this is a great time to have something to work on all day.
So how much person to person time, like face to face, other than Zooming?
It was all over Zoom. A lot
It
of
was
times my
all over
clients,
Zoom. Yeah.
a lot of times my clients will be all over the world. So this one was no exception.
And you're in Brooklyn?
I'm in Brooklyn, yeah, and
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Arizona originally, from Tucson.
Oh, Tucson. Okay. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. But yeah, so Tucson has some books. How
Mhm.
did you end up finding that in Tucson? Or was it started more in the illustration hub for you?
Sorry, what's that?
Did your career start more in the illustration hub,
More,
kind of
more,
like
more in the illustration.
area?
Yeah, more in the illustration world. So I came to New York for school. I went to Pratt Institute and studied
Okay,
illustration.
great.
And then I got an internship at a pop-up book studio of Matthew Reinhardt and Robert Sabuda, some,
Oh,
kind of
cool.
veterans of the industry.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I, right out of college, a couple months out of college, and just begged them for an internship. And I worked there for 8 years, just cutting up paper and figuring out die lines, and totally just from bare bones, just fully getting people coffee, just doing everything you needed to do until I finally kind of got a hang of it, and then went out on my own about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know anymore. I don't know time anymore in the pandemic. But so about 6 years ago, I think, went out on my own and have just kind of started doing freelance projects and different things.
Yeah. And did Sappy like hunt you down and say like, we need you to do this? Is that
Yeah,
how that came about? That
Sappy
feels
held me
good. That must be
down.
feeling good. Yeah.
Yeah, there aren't a ton of full-time paper engineers in the world, so
Yeah.
a lot of people reach out to me and they say, I found you on LinkedIn, I found you on your website, just you look up paper engineer, and I'm not the first one that shows up, but I'm not the last. So
You've been good at blogging and tagging and
I
Instagramming and
try,
all that. Is that
I
how you're
try,
getting up higher?
I try to
It
as much as
helps, doesn't
possible,
it?
but
Yeah.
you really don't know where you're gonna find a client from in such a niche market. I just try to be friendly to everybody and make myself as visible as possible. And yeah, and I try to just make sure my work is kind of that mix between, very exciting, very cool, and then also has to work every single time, no matter who's opening it up.
Yeah, as long as it's not like a 4-year-old that's eating chicken nuggets. Yeah.
Yeah, usually trying for, like, I think six, like a sweet 6-year-old is about the age then they can start
I really
going.
thought this was clever, having the loop and the
Oh,
cover
thank you.
chart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
very
really,
nice.
I really wanted to have the art of the loop. So that what she's got there is the pop-up of the loop, and you look through it. And I really
It,
wanted to try to explain the illustrator. He was great, but I was
yeah.
like, oh yeah, but the art in the loop has to be like magnified, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
like, I don't know what you mean. And we were kind of in
Yeah,
a
and he was like, it's got to be right. Yeah. So
yeah.
that loop is hiding on the left here in this flap
Mhm.
in that view. And then here it is with it open. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I really I'm not as aesthetically thrilled with this spread, but I am pop-up thrilled with this spread. I know it's just meant to be like, wow, this is all the kind of stuff we do, and I get why it's here, but it's just like, holy cow, if you get past the fact that it's like aesthetically a little crazy, there's some seriously cool pop-ups. This book is going to be really wonderful in our one of these days. Christina's stuff becomes Neba's library anyway. Yeah, so this book will eventually end up in the Neba library, but I think this is going to be a good teaching tool. I mean, there's some crazy action going on here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the saddest things about it is it's this kind of limited edition piece for this paper company Sappy, so it's not like you can really go to the store and pick it up.
How
It's
many did they make total?
I think they made 1,000 total. That seems to be kind of a
Really? And they were willing for you to like give away 100. Wow, that's amazing.
it wasn't me who gave it away. I was as surprised as you were when they said, hey,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this Zoom call, and I said, okay, that sounds great. And then they said, okay, we're giving them.
Yeah, I was
100
like,
away. And
holy cow. And I was on there like seconds after
yeah,
the Zoom was over. I was like, oh my God, I can't. I really just didn't believe it was true till it showed up. And then when it
yeah,
showed up, I still was just like, so like enamored of it. I like looked at it like nonstop for like 2 days. Yeah, it was just
yeah.
really amazing.
I'm glad you like
Let's
it.
keep flipping because we're getting close to the end of it here. I mean, the end is special. So the end is what the whole point of the whole book on some levels. But yeah, so here's some more, a little bit more towards the back page. I don't think I got a complete view of the last spread, but you're seeing some more of the engineering on the last spread and some details. Lots of beavers, you know. I grew up in an area in North Georgia that had a lot of beavers, deer, and bobcats. So there's something in this that resonates with me, and that kind of like fixes some ill will on some level from some of this like bad feelings of hunting that I experienced as a kid.
Well, I think it's supposed to take place in Maine. That's where their
Yeah,
main factories are. So I think this is supposed to be reminiscent of their landscape.
yeah. It feels good though. We don't have any moose down in Georgia though. No moose. And you really get a good sense here again of that like engineering on how we're getting all of this depth. It's just really, I mean, most people, it's one element or two that pop up and move. It's not like 5 or 6 things moving at once like this. It's pretty intense, dude.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just have to say. So now we're getting towards the back, which kind of folds out on itself. Production notes, and then you really it starts to sink in what you're looking at. So every single little thing is documented. So you're seeing here like the back cover, like the one with the otter here, back cover, spot textured matte UV coating on the otter. So you go to the otter and you check out just the otter, and you can decide if you like that, you know. So it really does. I mean, it's crazy how it covers every little bit of all of the different types of services they offer in such an elegant concept.
Yeah, it's really great way to showcase
Really,
kind of what they can do and what they're trying to do.
yeah, just unbelievable. So wonderful. Then they have this little section, because that's the way they are these days, with the scanning, so that you can hop right on in and you can set up your app for your cell phone, so that, you know, when you're deciding on the cereal boxes that you need for your company, you can, you know, make it all happen fast on your cell phone. This is the funniest, weirdest part to me, was this very last thing on the inside back cover. It says, please recycle this book when finished.
I have never noticed that.
No way in hell am I going to recycle this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was crazy. I was like, wow. Can you imagine anyone throwing this in a recycling bin?
I mean,
Yeah, that's just nuts. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then we get the back cover view. Yeah. Yeah, so here's some more of your other projects and your new one. You know, I haven't got a whole lot of imagery of this one yet because I haven't watched, you know, I hate to say it, I haven't watched Stranger Things yet. I'm still stuck on Handmaid's Tale. You know what I mean? I'm in there. So at some point I will watch Stranger Things, but that's your new big thing, right?
Yeah, that's the new project I'm working on, or just finished, I guess, suppose. Yeah, that just came out a couple of I guess just in August actually. So
here in this middle, I know it's kind of small to see, but here in the middle you can see some of this crazy creature coming out. That creature's up my alley. It's got a little, you know, it's got a little male/female confusion happening there. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty freaky.
You gotta watch the show. I think you'll love it. There's lots of big monsters and strange things happening. So
yeah, I love a good androgynous, not sure what the gender is, creature like that. Yeah, so these look fascinating. So I'm excited. I've heard a lot of good reviews, and you seem very proud in your photo. You have a nice internet presence, which I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit with the group some too.
We're all trying.
Yeah, we are, and that's what Neva's doing. Neva's trying like hell too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like your catchphrase.
What's my catchphrase?
Oh my goodness. Am I putting a catchphrase upon you? Some books don't fit on the shelf.
Oh, that's what I was saying about this. That was what I was saying about the wild initially, trying to but I guess it's just true. That is what that's my catchphrase. I'll go with it. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Can I go through and just kind of show this off a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I have you spotlighted now.
All right. So this is the book we just looked through, but I just kind of want to go through because sometimes just showing it is does a little bit different. So this, yeah, is the whole book. What we really tried to do, me and Alex, the illustrator who worked on it, just kind of showcase Sappy, and we talked with them for a while about what they wanted to show. And the real idea was to like have the very first page be the forest and kind of them using the forest. And then if I skip to this last page, it's that same forest, that same engineering, but now they're replanting, regrowing, which is what they really do and what they really focus on. And so that's where you get that kind of mirroring of those two spreads, that first spread and that last spread. And then, yeah, as we talked about, there's like all sorts of little kind of side pops is what you call them in the industry, but just kind of a beast of a book, but side pop.
I like how big it is, actually.
It's great size until you're trying to show it on a Zoom, and then you realize it's a little difficult. But for me, what I try to focus on with all my work is just making everything kind of as big as possible. So you'll see, like, as things close down, they do kind of close down just to hit the size within the book that they can. I had a friend of mine describe me as a maximalist paper engineer, which I didn't realize that you didn't have to be. Like,
I have seen a lot of people whose action is mainly towards the middle and doesn't really come all the way out to the edges like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was definitely the school that I kind of grew up in with Robert Sabuto and Matthew Reinhardt, was just like, how do you make it as big as possible while still making sure that like the point of why you're doing it is there.
Yeah.
This is the second spread. This is the factory, and I think this would be better if I pick up on something. But basically, this is this factory, and then
it opens. Yeah.
The two sides pop out and create this kind of gigantic, huge factory piece, and allows you to kind of play around with all of the spinning wheels and different things and movements in it. Oops.
I love the shift from the organic outside into this industrial and then back again, the way it moves, the cycle. Yeah.
And so just, you know, they're proud of their work. They're proud of what they do, and they wanted to really showcase it. And so I think it's this. So this is that third spread, which is one of their like huge printers. I don't know if you've ever seen these kind of gigantic printers.
I have, yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah, so their spot, like checking the spot on the last spread, which is pretty meta, you know, like on their camera. And then here's that loop that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So, oh, and it just ripped. There you go.
Dang.
Delicate pop-up books, but here is that loop we were talking about, and so that's that piece that kind of is showing color checking and spot checking. And then this is the fourth spread, which is the advertisements, and this was definitely the hardest spread to create.
Oh, I bet.
So it's a ton of.
It's got so many different styles of pop going on there, man.
Yeah, so it's all these different rectangles and these objects. And what I ended up having to do is engineer it a little bit. It's like called over engineering, where none of these things actually are actually rectangles. They're all a little bit back at an angle, so that when somebody opens it, if they only open it like this much, it'll still kind of look correct. Whereas if you open it the whole way, you can see everything's kind of tilted backwards a little bit.
Yeah.
Just an insurance.
It's like an optical illusion, though, of sorts, right? Yeah.
I want people to experience it and think it's looking right, even if they're timid and not sure and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we get back to this last piece, and the forest is hopefully, you know, leave it better than you found it. And and then we have, and then as we were saying, here's that kind of back page that shows all the different pieces to it, which is really kind of exceptional, just showing what they can do. Yeah.
It's just amazing, honey.
What was that?
Yeah. Woo! Let's hop into gallery view and see if anybody else wants to chime in. Please join the conversation. I was gonna share the good news that Stephanie has one of your books too. I don't know if Stephanie, you're still here? Do you have any thoughts on how much you're grooving on it?
Hi. Yeah, I just had to figure out how to unmute. Yes, Simon, and it's really great. It's overwhelming. And thank you, Christina, for finding out about it and also giving me a copy. Um, yeah, I know how to make pop-ups, but I can't seem to make them into art. So I have fun making them, but it's really a challenge to pull it all together and have a concept behind it, and then also have the art, and then also make it into a book. Like, there's just so many challenges. But thank you for showing this, because several of my students are here. So this is exactly what they need to see.
Absolutely.
She teaches a lot of pop-up classes, so she's definitely making a lot of pop-up books.
Oh, great.
Definitely. We have such a diverse membership. I would say I've seen almost a pop-up book out of just about everybody, because almost we span so many, like each of us does so many different kinds of styles, that I think that almost every one of us has done a pop-up at least in some manner, hopefully, because I feel like I've seen a lot of pop-ups through us, which is great to see the experiment. I'm doing a flag book demonstration that's free on November 10th with another arts organization that's going to be Zooming. And that's one that I really enjoy. It's not that complicated. It's not like nowhere near the kind of pop-up that you do, but there's a lot of love for pop-ups here, no doubt.
Alice Stan makes some pretty cool pop-ups too.
Hi, I actually do want to ask a question. Nothing that complex, but I am also an illustrator, and then I make pop-up books with my illustration. And I'm curious what the experience is like of being an engineer and not an artist. Do you prefer being both? Or what's it like to collaborate with someone and have to do something so mathematical while they're trying to do sort of the image making part?
I prefer, as I said, I studied illustration. I kind of prefer doing it all at once. I think it allows me to kind of know what to expect and do sort of engineer with the thinking of the illustrations at the same time. It just allows me to like lose a step. But I would say most of my work, most of my freelance work, there's usually another illustrator involved, or the company has somebody in mind, or it is that illustrator's work. Excuse me. So I'm very used to it, and it really just depends. Sometimes it can be a really great relationship, like with Alex, who did the Sappy book. We just got along really well. Everything made sense. I've had other times with people who are just a little more kind of overwhelmed by the process, and you say you have to paint the back of somebody's head or the reverse of this or something, and they don't quite understand. So it's different every time, but I think I'm getting better at collaborating.
Nice. It seems complicated. It seems like a lot of
Yeah,
moving pieces. Pardon the.
But there are some illustrators that are just so much better than me and so much faster than me, and I would be very foolish if I didn't acknowledge that. Like the guy Kyle, who did the Stranger Things book, like he can just make everything so photorealistic, and he can work so quickly that it's just like I wouldn't even want to try.
Yeah. Do a lot of people work in like Illustrator or vector-based programs so that it's easy to sort of like scale imagery up and down depending on?
I think most illustrators work in Photoshop, and then
Okay.
I end up taking it into Illustrator when I put like die lines onto it. I'll take their art, usually a Photoshop.
Cool.
So I found most people use Photoshop first. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Interesting. Who else has a question? Susan.
I have one. On the last book with the spread that had all of the advertising in it, it had lots of different pop-ups. Could you kind of show what the different types of pop-ups were that you used on that spread?
Yeah, I can try to talk about it. After a certain point, you kind of run out of words for things. There's like, but I can kind of give you kind of a rundown. So everything exists on a V-fold. If you look at this is like the front, and then if we kind of turn it around and look at the back, everything exists on just a giant V-fold. And for me, that's kind of the first place to start, is just how do I create something that's really going to allow a lot of other things to move and move powerfully. And so there's this giant V fold in the back here, and that's where all the power comes from. And then from that, we're creating, excuse me, we're creating all of these kind of secondary structures. And for me, I guess if you look at them from the top, what I've done is I've kind of played around with taking I knew I needed to make a lot of boxes. And so what I ended up doing is creating V folds on angles that, one second. Like, so, you know, just a general V fold is going to be able to, and like, stop me if this makes no sense, but a general V fold is going to move and kind of take that space up and be very strong. And so that's what we're using for the first mechanism that goes onto the base page. If people have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, but
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to go into all the basics of it, but
yeah, but I think I can explain this one thing really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is just that, like, a lot of these mechanisms, these boxes, what I do is I'm basically just taking a V fold, but now the structure is at 180 degrees and the fold is at 90 or 45. So that allows for it to stand up like a box.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where you get these kind of secondary box shapes.
Yeah. I think if you have it in your hands and you're really like intent on trying to see that particular spread, you can see really well down into each of those little containers, you know, so maybe I think the easy, maybe you should borrow it from me.
Yeah, I think take a look at it, but it's basically finding,
to be able to like get in there and really see it, you know?
Yeah. And so for me, it was finding these ways to kind of create things and create a lot of perspective, but also like contrast between the sizes. If you make one thing big and one thing small and kind of play around so that everything works and looks like it is the size it is.
Yeah. So I know this may seem like a little gauche to talk about, but how much do you think these guys are going to be worth? Because nobody can get them. There aren't that many. They're going to probably end up in some special collections libraries, wouldn't you imagine?
Yeah, I think so. I can't speak for that, but do you know this book, The Babadook?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the first projects I worked on was a pop-up book about this horror film called The Babadook. If you don't like horror films, I don't recommend it. This movie is about sorry, this family that gets kind of taken over by this terrifying pop-up book. And I was asked by the director to create a physical version of that, and they only sold 1,000 copies, and I think they were $100 at the time. And my friend always checks on eBay and lets me know every couple months that they're now like $2,000, I think.
I don't know if people can you see? I know the pictures are small here, but can you guys see it well enough? I love the aesthetic of this one, especially. I really do. And I can't afford, obviously, to be buying $2,000.
Yeah.
But wow, what a cool piece. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you. And so I guess that's what happens when people make kind of small runs of some of these.
Yeah.
They end up becoming valuable just because of their scarcity. Which
Well,
I think
the pop-up book of phobia has been a long time gift for little boys in my world. I always give them that, and if I don't get in trouble, I might give them the second volume of it too. But I love a good scary pop-up, and it's pleasurable.
Yeah, it's fun. You gotta subvert them.
Yeah, Babadook, nice. Awesome. Well, what a pleasure to have you here today. We're super excited that you were able to come, like totally starstruck. And we're going to hook you up with a zine set as a thank you gift. So you can either wait for another like month and find out about this year's, or you can pick from one of the 2 previous years.
All right.
Yeah. So we're super excited to have a little bit different idea for the fall this year moving forward with our mixer, our monthly meetings. We used to be bogged down a little bit in some of the like, how to get our business going because we were a little bit young. We're getting to be older and wiser, and now we're having more fun each month with our mixers and just having like special guests and odds and ends. So the next odd, I don't know if Simon, you're going to be able to keep trudging along. You're a trooper with your sore throat, but we're going to talk a little bit about what's called a Victorian puzzle purse for a few more minutes, and then we'll kick out.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. I might mute my microphone and get some tea.
Thank you, Simon. Great
you.
work.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So beautiful. All of it. Just really nice.